Hello and how are you? Today's prescription is good RNG, and today I'm going to do a bit of a different format for one of my videos. If you like it or like the content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free. Anyways, let's get into it. Today you might be here for different reasons. There probably are multiple titles and thumbnails for this video, but the point remains the same for all of them, whether you're an agent or a guardian. I just wanted to make this video because I think it's relevant for the current time that we're in. The reason why is Destiny 2 is dead/dying, and Division 2 and 3 are probably the only hopes I have for the looter-shooter genre, at least for the foreseeable future. The other options, like Warframe, are not really a traditional looter-shooter in the sense that I have like 2,000 or 3,000 hours in Warframe. I like Warframe a lot, but it's just not a traditional looter-shooter. Borderlands has been plummeting off a cliff in the last 2 games in the genre. Borderlands 3 was kind of a failure in a sense. It was a good game, I enjoyed it, and Borderlands 4 wasn't much better than that. The first, Goon Sendant, is also not really a looter shooter. It falls into the same kind of genre as Warframe, where it's kind of a horde shooter with like heroes. And last but not least, there is 2 looter shooters in the genre that are pretty much gone and dead, or dead and dusted, whichever you prefer to say, and that is Anthem and Outriders. Rest in paradise. I will miss both of those games dearly. I enjoyed both of them pretty severely. They just had issues with like endgame content and content at all in some cases. So I think that the time we're in right now, especially if you're a guardian, it might be a pretty good time to jump ship. And I do think that the Division is kind of the only hope that we have left. So let's discuss why I think if you enjoyed Destiny 2, Division might be a good sub game for you. And if you're an agent already and you already enjoyed Division, I'm going to go over some stuff that I think as a Destiny player I would like for Division to improve so that we all can kind of hop on Division and enjoy it a little bit more. So, what caused me to make this video? Truthfully, I kind of make videos whenever I kind of feel like it. There's not really a rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of hoping to get lucky, as is the typical case with the YouTubers and content creators. So, when I make a video, I kind of make something that I truly want to make at the moment, and I was feeling a little bit burnt out with how aggressively I was kind of grinding the Monument of Triumph. If you don't know and you're an agent, the Monument of Triumph was Destiny 2's last update that just happened. It's a very good update. They added content across the entire game. There's so many new things to grind. There's so much to do. It was kind of Destiny's last hurrah in an attempt to give the player base everything that they've been asking for, and it's really unfortunate that it was the last update. It really did change the game for the better in pretty much all cases. And so when I was in between games, I was kind of looking around, and I had played Division in the past. I've just never put in a significant amount of time in Division. About 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like agent or shade level like 200, maybe 150. And for those Division players that are here, you all know that like 100 to 200 is not a big deal. That's nothing in Division. That's because in Division, once you hit level 40, you start going into shade levels, and shade levels are kind of just an infinite level progression. They go all the way up to, I mean, I've never seen, I don't know if there's an upper limit to how many shade levels you can gather. I've seen guys in the 20,000s, 30,000s, and so on. But past like 1,000, it stops being like relevant. Every level up to 1,000, you get like 1% stat boosts in a bunch of different categories, and then every level from 1,000 to 2,000, you just get health, the 1% health boosts, and then once you're at 2,000, you no longer get stat bonuses from shade levels. My agents already probably know about that. My guardians, I'm just explaining it for you. So yeah, this wasn't the first time that I've played Division. I really enjoyed the Division. There's always just been... I've always liked Destiny more than Division. And it just so happened that when... just after the Monument, I got bored with Monument of Triumph. Division 2 had a triple XP week, right? An entire week of triple XP. And something inside of me just said, you know what? I'm going to grind Division. I'm just going to lock in and get all of my shade levels from 200 or whatever I was at all the way up to 1,000. And I did. I grinded the hell out of it. It was awesome. I was really enjoying myself. I was stacking levels and so forth. And in between level stacking and stuff like that, I was also participating in some of the endgame content in Division that I had never really cared to pay attention to before. In Destiny, it would be like if you could go past Grandmasters, which are escalations. Escalations, for my Guardians, are basically missions across the entire game, both campaign missions, DLC missions, and so forth. It's missions you've done in the past, but you can escalate their difficulties way beyond the normal scope in most content. When you start escalating the missions, the enemies start getting more health, more modifiers, more damage, yada yada yada. Like modifiers that actually change gameplay and make it more difficult to actually kill stuff. And the reward is prototype gear, which is basically gear that exists beyond the normal legendary type gear, beyond the normal named gear in Division, the gear sets as well. And all of these prototype items have like special perks. They're like stats are way beyond the scope of what you can normally get. And so I started grinding my escalations. When I was grinding escalations, I found a squad of people, and that squad of people introduced me to another squad of people, and that squad of people introduced me to another squad of people, and then we kind of got together and made a clan. And we've quickly figured out that a lot of us are Destiny refugees. We're almost a clan of what I would consider entirely Destiny refugees that are now playing Division because we just want that looter shooter grind, and we want new content in that looter shooter grind. And so you could say, like, right now I'm like all in on Division. I mean, I have a clan that like we all hop in the Discord every single day. We like check the daily escalations. We like get together and actively grind content as a group, and it's been fun, like really fun. With this random group of people that I've met online, and now we're, a certified clan, and we're slowly just grinding the game together on like a set schedule. And then last week, Division released their summer event. I have never really participated in the Division summer events, so I don't know what like the past summer events have been like, but for Division, it's kind of, for my Guardians, it's kind of like our Guardian games. Like our summer event is what the Division does every single season, but they like change the game. It's not just the same game mode, like it's not just the same Guardian games copy and pasted every year. The Division actually does events that it just decides what that event is going to be, and then it releases them every summer. This one is called the Dust Storm event, and it takes the old DLC map that usually didn't have a lot of reasons to go back to. Like there just wasn't a lot of content in that area once you beat the DLC, so there wasn't a reason to return to that zone. But now that the Dust Storm event is in that zone, there is quite a significant reason to return to that zone, and it's actually really cool. It allows us to go back to the Warlords of New York expansion, which if you didn't own before is now free for all players, so all players can jump in, they can grind, beat the entire DLC campaign, and then they can immediately jump into the Dust Storm event. And what the Dust Storm event is it's a weather condition, and the entire map has been covered in like dust, kind of like sand of a sort. And when you're running around, there's a chance that you get ambushed by this new group of enemies, an elite kill squad, an elite group of enemies that They ambush you, and then when you kill them, you have a chance to get keys. And these keys can be opened at the main base for cosmetics, for new gear, for gear from prior seasons and past things that you couldn't get anymore. It's honestly a really good time. And like I said, it's a really refreshing use of a previous zone that we didn't really have a reason to go back for. And with the new squad that I joined and the new clan that I joined, it's so fun to just it's truthfully not that hard of content. So we use it as a break from the more difficult content. We use it as like a goof off kind of time where the whole squad just kind of gets together and runs through the map and makes jokes, and it's very relaxed. Alright, so now I want to talk about, for my guardians and for my agents that are here, if you didn't know, that's okay. For my guardians, this is mainly for you. What are the similarities and the differences between Division 2 and Destiny 2? So when you get down to it, Division 2 and Destiny 2 are not that far off from each other. They're both looter shooters. They have guns, gear, abilities, gear sets, exotics. They both have dungeons and raid content. We'll get into that in a little bit, though. They both have seasonal battle passes that usually drop you a brand new exotic weapon or exotic gear. Usually in Division's case, it's both. So they drop new cosmetics in the battle pass, but they also drop a new exotic weapon that as soon as you buy the premium, you get the exotic brand new level 1 on the premium track. Pretty similar to how the Destiny does it, but Division also usually has exotic armor in the battle pass as well. Both games obviously have a store with microtransactions, cosmetics that are completely optional, and they both have ways to gain some of those cosmetics free, similar to Bright Engrams from Destiny. In Division, they're called apparel caches. You get keys for them every couple levels. I have like 99 caches that are just sitting in my inventory unopened because I'm just too lazy to open them. But where both games differ is a question that I'm sure that you're asking. In my opinion, Destiny definitely has a better storyline and season-to-season story. The Division story is so abysmal and bad, in my opinion. I'm sure that there are Division lore heads like My Name is Bife from Destiny, but it just doesn't seem like the Division really has lore that people give a fuck about. I've talked to my clan members and all of these guys that I met and like people that I've been playing with recently, and I've just I've asked a couple of them, like, do you guys know anything about the lore of Division? And most of them are like, no, not really. The Division lore just doesn't matter, right? A couple of them are Destiny refugees, but a couple of them are Division, long-term players who have been playing Division for an extremely long time. We have one guy in our clan that's level 8,000 Shade level 8,000 or so, which means that he's been playing Division for quite a long time. Not an insane amount of time. He's not 20,000 Shade level. But I'm not a super lore nerd in both Division or Destiny, but I know the general story of everything that's kind of happening in Destiny. Part of it may be because of My Name is Bife and watching videos and content creators like him, but the general vibe from Division players is just no one cares about the story. Something else that Destiny really gets better is raid and dungeon content. Now, for some of my Destiny players, this is going to be a turnoff. I'm just going to be honest, because this is one of the things that I want from Division. The biggest thing that I want from Division is I want them to possibly just go hire the Destiny 2 raid and dungeon team. Just find their LinkedIn's or whatever and hire those guys, because Division really needs help in this aspect specifically. Just for some quick facts, Destiny came out in 2017 and Division came out in 2019, so only 2 years later. And by the end of Destiny 2's lifecycle, the Monument of Triumph, Destiny 2 has 16 total raids across its entire lifetime. I'm including all raids in that number. I counted all of them. And 11 dungeons total. Division has 2 raids, and by the time that this video comes out, there's a new dungeon coming out on the 11th of August, which would bring the grand total of dungeons, in Division they're called incursions, to 2 as well. So Division has 2 raids and 2 dungeons. Destiny has 16 raids and 11 dungeons. This is just something where I just think that Division should lock in and create some more of this endgame content for players to chase, because we all enjoy that type of content. I just feel like there's not a lot of people that can argue that raids aren't fun. If you think that raids aren't fun, it just probably means that you're antisocial and you just don't want to find a squad to try and run raids with. And I respect the solo player experience, but I feel like the solo player experience should respect the group player experience and respect the fact that we want dungeons, we want raids, we want that kind of content. There's all of the content in the entire game is soloable. You can go solo all of it, but you're not going to be able to solo raids, and that's the whole point of that content. So I just really hope that they lock in and create more raids and dungeons, whether it's in Division 3 or in Division 2. Something else that I think, now this part can be argued, but I feel like I have a pretty solid argument on this stance. I think Destiny does the class and ability section significantly better than Division does it. Where Destiny is a super sci-fi space shooter with wizards and space magic and yada yada yada, Division is a game more kind of rooted in reality, but still with a little bit of flex there, right? And the flex comes from, like, there are a couple of abilities in Division where it's like, okay, I understand that you're trying to use technology for explaining what is currently happening, but you're so far into sci-fi that it's almost bullshit. A good example is in Division, the healer class. If you want to play healer, you basically equip this chem launcher. It's a chemical launcher that fires nanobots in a green circle on the floor that somehow magically, whenever your allies walk into it, repairs their physically, like their literal flak armor, right? That's how healers work in Division. You shoot green nanomachines that heal someone's flak armor on their body by force, right? Without their consent. So it's just one of those things like, all right, we're kind of leaning into technology, but we're kind of so sci-fi bullshit that it doesn't make sense, you know? Destiny definitely does a little bit better in that sense, where, like, you know, Destiny has 3 main classes. Every class also has 6 subclasses. Could have been 7, but we never got the Final Darkness subclass, whatever. So, what does Division do better? In my opinion, something that Division definitely does better than Destiny, like blows it out of the water completely, is the gear system. So in Destiny, you have, when I say gear, I mean the actual weapons and armor that you're currently carrying. And in Destiny, for my Guardians, you already know this, but we have 5 slots of armor. We have head, chest, legs, arms, and class mod. And then you have 3 weapons. You have your primary, your secondary, and your heavy weapon. And in Destiny, you can have 1 exotic weapon and 1 exotic armor. Division mirrors this, but just does it a little bit better. Where Division, you have 3 weapons, 4 if you count your specialization weapon, which is a topic for Division 3. Specialization weapons need to get significantly improved. They are the most useless thing in the entire game. But you have 3 weapons. You have your primary, your secondary, and your pistol, and 1 of them can be an exotic. And then you have 6 slots of gear, and 1 of your 6 slots of gear can be an exotic, where you can have your mask, your backpack, your chest, your gloves, your holster, and your knee pads. And again, 1 of them can be an exotic. So just like the Destiny, and the games are similar in this sense, where both games you can have 1 exotic armor piece and 1 exotic weapon. The thing that Division does better than Destiny is Division has, for my Guardian, I'm going to use Guardian terms here so that my Guardians understand it. My agents already understand what I'm going for here. In Division, you have 6 pieces of armor. 1 can be an exotic, but only 4 of those pieces of armor are needed to complete a gear set, right? Destiny 2 recently started adding gear sets where, like, if you have 4 pieces of an armor, you get, like, a special bonus activated. In Division, it's only 4 of your 6 pieces of armor, and that means it leaves enough room for 1 of your pieces to be an exotic and 1 piece to be a named legendary piece. Usually, that's just how Division players make builds usually. We always have 4 pieces of a gear set, 1 super special named item, and then 1 exotic, right? And in Destiny, that would basically be, like, imagine if there was a legendary piece of armor that had a name where it wasn't an exotic, but it was close enough to being an exotic that it had a special name for the piece of gear. And again, in this case, Division continues to blow Destiny out of the water because in Destiny, the gear sets are, you need 4 pieces of them, so it leaves room for 1 exotic, but those 4 pieces never really create a gear set bonus that is significant, right? The best one I can think of recently was, like, the Iron Banner gear, where, like, the 2-piece bonus is kind of irrelevant. It just gives you primary weapon damage against red bar enemies, and the 4-piece bonus is you return some of your super energy when you kill enemies with your super. Wow, that's it. If I tried to give you an explanation of a Destiny or Division 2 gear set, it's going to take forever. I mean, the Division 2 gear sets, you need 4 pieces of them of your 6 pieces of armor, and they significantly change the game. They're exotic level effects on your armor. I mean, as the quickest example I can think of is my favorite gear set, the Future Initiative bonus, right? Because I'm a healer main in Division, the Future Initiative bonus is a 4-piece of armor where when your team is full HP, they get a damage bonus. And then whenever you heal an ally, you also heal yourself and any nearby allies closer, like close to you specifically as the healer, right? They're exotic level effects built into a gear set. And then another thing that Division does better, and I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to re-mention it here because it's important, is Division does gear a little bit better than Destiny as well because the chase is just more significant. In Destiny, the highest level of gear that you can acquire is Tier 5 gear. And Tier 5 gear does have increased stats, but those stats aren't really important. And when you're at a certain level in Destiny, everything is Tier 5. You're not really getting like Tier 4s if you're level 550. Right, you're only really getting Tier 5s, and that's it. That's the pinnacle of gear that you can acquire. In Division, that's just not the case, right? Like, in Division, there's the prototype gears, which require you to go through the entire strenuous process of escalation tier content, which escalation tier content is pretty much the hardest content in Division that you can do. And that means to get the hardest gear, to get the best gear, you have to do the hardest content. And the escalation gear, the prototype gear, are significant upgrades from the normal gear that would be dropping for everybody else. The only other way that you can get around this system is a system that I personally don't like in Division, and we'll get into that right now. So, if you don't want to do escalation tier content, or you aren't very good at escalation tier content, the only other option to really get gear that you want prototyped is by going through the expertise system, and even this system requires you to do some escalation so that you can get some of the material by deconstructing prototype gear to upgrade your gear into prototype. But the expertise system, in my opinion, is a horrible system. It's supposed to be for like the super endgame players of Division, but I just feel like it wasn't implemented in the correct way. And expertise is basically everything in the game has an XP bar. Every item, like every weapon that you pick up, every gear, like every single piece of gear that you pick up has a level. And you need to level that item up to max level, right? There's basically 10 levels of every item. And when you do that, you get a little bit of XP towards your expertise level, right? And there are 30 expertise levels, and there are over 500 something items, I think, in Division. So you need to go level up every single piece of gear to level up your expertise to 30. And then once you have achieved expertise 30, you have leveled up basically at least 400 or so of the 500 items, I think. I don't remember if anyone's done the math on this, but it's like 300 to 400 pieces of the 500 gear you have to level all the way up to max, and then you've achieved expertise 30. And once you do so, you can start upgrading your gear that you're currently carrying to expertise 30, and then it gets small stat bonuses when you upgrade it, and then you can prototype it by like forcibly upgrading it into prototype. And the only way to do that is if you get some of the materials from other prototype gear, escalations and stuff like that. This system is interesting in concept, but it creates a trap, in my opinion, that's not fun for a majority of players. And the trap is basically, if you're a healer player or a tank player in Division, you are going to be forced to play with gear and items that you don't enjoy just to level up your expertise so that you can upgrade your stuff. In my opinion, this system is flawed because it's good and bad. It forces players to try new things by making you explore all the items in the game, but it also punishes players that are not willing to do that or not able to do that by making it a ridiculous grind and making you use gear that you don't want to use. In Division 3, I think this system could be improved by making it so that you can expertise 30 a piece of gear if you have it equipped for an extremely long amount of time. I just feel like the current system of expertise makes it so that you can kind of jump around and like play all of the different builds in the game and explore all the builds, but it just punishes people that are focused on one build. Where if they created a system where if you have a certain piece of gear or items equipped for an extremely long amount of time, like as long as it would take to get expertise 30 now, if you had that system just for individual gear. So if I only have like my healer set equipped for 300 hours or so, then I can expertise 30 my gear that I'm currently wearing. I will admit that the other part of the system that's not very good is the escalations themselves. I do enjoy the escalations and it's a fun grind, but it does suck for what I would consider the average gamer, the average 9 to 5 gamer, someone who has a job. And the reason why is because the escalation missions are 5 missions selected randomly throughout the entire game that the devs, I don't know if the devs have like a robot or whatever selecting the missions, or they're doing it themselves individually every day. Doesn't matter, right? 5 missions throughout the entire game are selected daily as the escalations, and those 5 missions are assigned gear specifically throughout the entire game, if that makes sense. So like I said, there's 500 different like weapons and gear sets and stuff like that in Division. So of those 5 escalation missions daily that are selected, there are 5 gear sets or items selected to drop from those missions daily. And what that means is for like the average gamer, they're going to keep checking the escalation board daily, or they have like a Discord bot or whatever that tracks it for them, like my clan does. They have to basically pay attention to that bot daily, and then after they get home from work, they may only have 4 or 5 hours to grind a specific mission for a specific gear set that they want daily. And the reason that this sucks is just like the drops are rough. Like it's just a difficult process to be able to like every single day log on, check the gear sets, and then, oh, my gear set is finally available. I have 4 hours to lock in and try and get this gear set, and then tomorrow it's gone, right? And then you're also hoping for the drops that do drop from the mission being actually having like the stats and requirements that you need for the build that you're trying to make. So I just feel like it locks the players into a difficult system where they need to basically constantly be watching the escalations every single day, and then they have a very short, limited amount of time daily to be able to farm those escalations if they want the thing that is currently dropping from that mission. And God forbid, the mission... Sometimes the missions can be, like, the most difficult missions in the game. Like, some missions are... Like, not all missions are created equally. Like, sometimes the escalation mission is genuinely just a nightmare to farm. And if the gear set that you want from that mission is... the gear set that you want, but the mission is extremely difficult, I just feel like it makes it even harder for the average gamer to be able to, like, get the gear that they want. So, how would I fix this personally? I think that the biggest improvement that they could do to this system is basically escalating, or allowing us to escalate every single mission in the entire game at any time. This way, the loot across all of Division, like the loot offered from every mission and every like piece of content in the gear, kind of rotates randomly in like a giant counterclockwise kind of like circle, you know? So like every single day, if you just farm the same mission over and over and over and over and over and over every single day, that mission will drop different things every day. So if they allowed us to escalate every single mission in the entire game, a lot of gamers would have more options to be able to like hunt down their gear. So like if their gear was on one mission one day, it might be on a completely different mission the next day, and then they can go farm that mission instead. And this gives us like more replayability around playing all of the missions in the game again, because we're like chasing our gear across the entire map and so forth and so on. And if not that, and I think that's the like more timid version of what I really want, there could be an option where they could allow us to escalate the two sources of content in the entire game that do actually allow you to target farm. So in Division, there are two activities that allow you to target farm. And what I mean by target farm is when you launch that activity, you literally get to select what gear you want to drop in that mission. You get to just choose, right? From the entire list of gear in the entire game, you can just say, hey, these two activities, I want this gear to drop. And those two missions are the Summit, which is a 100-floor tower. It's kind of like you get to just climb this tower from floor 0 to floor 100. So you just get to run through it and like kill enemies and yada yada yada. It takes a very long time. Even an efficient squad can't really clear the Summit in like under an hour or so, I think. I don't know that off the top of my head, truthfully, but like... It takes a couple hours to get through all 100 floors of the Summit. And the other option is the Countdown. The Countdown, being able to escalate the Countdown would be very difficult, I think, because the Countdown's an 8-player activity where the goal of it is to complete it in under 15 minutes. You're literally on a 15-minute timer, and it is an 8-player activity, but it's just like a... Division, or Destiny's kind of had these 8-player activities in the past as well.
There's going to be a bit of drop in quality here because I'm going to swap microphones because I kind of want to close out this video and this topic that I'm kind of talking about. So I'm going to switch microphones and switch setups. And I'm going to try and continue to explain what is going on. So in the Division, there is probably a bit of a divide in the community because a lot of people think that you don't need not everyone needs proto gear. It's very similar to in Destiny. There was not everyone needs tier 5 gear. Well, yeah, but everybody wants tier 5 gear because it's the end game of like your gear. It's the end game of what you want your builds to be. So the disconnect of not everyone needs proto gear and the disconnect of not everyone needs tier 5 is apparent in both games. But the way that I see it is the fact that you don't need proto gear and the fact that you don't need tier 5 gear is something that needs to be improved in looter shooters as a whole, in my opinion. Just the devs need to create more content where, yes, you do need proto gear. Yes, you do need tier 5 gear. Yes, you need the best of the best of the best. I don't care if it's hard mode raids, challenged mode raids, things that drop exclusive cosmetics, things that drop exclusive trinkets and little pieces of gear that said, hey, I did this super hard activity and I needed proto gear to get through it. I needed tier 5 gear to get through it. It is something that I wish that both games did better across the board, and gave us like true reasons to pursue this gear. Like, I want to get all this gear because I want it, because I want to be a perfectionist, but why do I need this gear? Well, truthfully, there isn't a good answer to that question in Destiny or in Division. Both games have a tendency to just not create content hard enough to justify the damage and the gear that we're really putting out. In Division, even in both incursions, which are the dungeons, and the raids, proto gear is actually completely turned off to even the odds between players that have proto gear and players that don't have proto gear, because there's leaderboards for the Division. So in closing, I think some of the biggest things that Division needs to improve, especially in Division 3, is, like I said, I think that they should try and steal the Destiny 2 raid team and the Destiny 2 dungeon team, and then we should really get on creating a lot more raids and dungeons with interesting mechanics and ways to play the game. I think the gear system in Division is good, but definitely could be better. There could be more gear sets that encourage tanking playstyles and encourage healing playstyles and encourage DPS playstyles. Especially because Division is a primarily red game. When I say red, in Division there are 3 main playstyles. There's blue, yellow, and red. Red players are the DPS players, and the game is centered very heavily around red. The only yellow players / skill players that you ever really need in Division are healers. You never really need tanks in Division. There aren't enough content in the game that actually require a tank player. And so, yeah, I mean, I would like them to create more content that requires tank players. I would like them to create more gear sets and more skills and more classes that encourage yellow playstyles. I would like more skills to encourage red playstyles as well. In Division, there are no skills that scale off of red. All of the skills in the game pretty much scale off of yellow, except for the shield, which is the only thing that scales off of blue. It scales off yellow as well, but it scales off blue better because it's for the tank players. I think there should be skills in Division that scale off of red, specifically for the red players, because the red players are the guys running around shooting their guns the most, but they still have 2 abilities, and most of the time those 2 abilities are pretty useless and pretty limited in what they can actually use for their builds. But it's pretty clear that Division may or may not be the only looter shooter for the foreseeable future. I mean, unless we get a surprise Destiny game out of nowhere, unless something comes out of the woodwork from some other studio about a new looter shooter in the genre. It just seems like looter shooters are a hard genre to manage. I mean, Destiny was pretty much one of the only looter shooters in history that was really, really successful. Division is right there behind it. And then, again, I've already talked about the other ones. I mean, Anthem, rest in peace. Outriders, rest in peace. Warframe is barely a looter shooter. It's more of a horde shooter. It kind of created its own genre, and the First Ascendant followed right after it and basically copied it one for one. And so, yeah, in closing, I'm probably going to be playing Division for the foreseeable future, especially because nothing is going to be coming out of Destiny. Division's probably going to transition into being my main game and the main game that I would like to make content on. And this video was just to show that, like, Division's a good game. It's a pretty solid replacement for Destiny if you have a Destiny-sized hole in your heart. And I think that the Division 3 is the only hope that we have for looter shooters in the future. If you would like me to make an update to this video, a part 2, maybe like to zone in on a specific topic, I wouldn't mind that. Just leave a comment, like, subscribe, and just tell me what you guys would like to see from me. And this has been the Loot Doctor, and today's prescription is good RNG. See you later, baby.